concentrate on the things you can do. And the things you can do is you can be present with your family. You can be present with the clerk. You can say kind things to people. You can hold the door open for someone. Instead of concentrating on the things you can't do that leave you powerless, concentrate on the things you can do that gives you your personal power back. And as you change that, I mean, for those of us who believe in the law of attraction, all of a sudden you see yourself being capable rather than incapable.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind to Lead podcast. And today I am very excited and honored because I'm sat down with Clifton Carmody. Clifton is an executive leadership coach, and he was recently founded in the 20 Mindful Leaders, leading us into a better 2021. So Clifton, amazing to have you on the podcast today.
Why, thank you very much. And congratulations to you also for making that list. It's wonderful to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thought who better to get on the podcast than, one of the thought leaders that is going to be leading us into a better 2021. So look, before we sort of touch on, all of that sort of good piece, the mindfulness and what you do and how you're helping people right now, let's take it a step back and, please introduce yourself and go into a bit about your journey and sort of what sort of, I guess, led you to this point in your life right now.
Okay. Well, I was the proverbial angry young man when I was in high school and early college. And I had a friend who got me playing rugby. So I played rugby. I was kind of one of those people with a lot of angst, and went through that, ended up getting a career in hospitality industry, and had a couple of beautiful daughters. And at one point when they were both very young, I got really upset, and I thought I had a right to just slam the table with my hand. And then I saw these two little girls crying, and I was really ashamed of myself. It was one of those turning points in my life, and I got into mindfulness. So I was in mindfulness. I ended up being on the management board of a couple of centers, Dalai Lama's Brothers Center, a couple of nonprofits, while I was also in this career in hospitality. And at some point in there where I was working for the Taxter Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama's brother, we had these intimate meetings with the Dalai Lama. And at some point I said kind of half jokingly, well, I'm not a monk, I'm a father. And His Holiness said, we don't need more monks. We need good business people. Mm-hmm. And that always stuck in the back of my head. And as I made my career mistakes and life mistakes and everything, that always stuck in the back of my head. And I realized when I started coaching that a lot of times, a lot of people really have a strong desire to do good, whether it's in their company to meet their goals, whether it's just to be a better person. But sometimes the process is more important than people in their minds. And they go through life and they make mistakes. They're not mindful. They're not paying attention. And I got a tryout for the United States Eagles, and I always tell people that if I had been meditating, I would have made the national team, but I wasn't meditating and I was too scattered. So I really, right now in my life, I'm at a point where I want to help people. I think we're in a totally different time of the world right now, and there's people demand more. It's not a fear-based leadership. Right now, it's more of a heart-centered leadership and more of a collaboration. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing my best to help that.
Yeah, wow. And I just think that you've touched upon something that's really important there, that whole anger, because I think there's a lot of people, especially now, who are angry, who are looking for people to blame. So I'd love to know, you obviously had that outburst of rage and anger. And then you sort of discovered mindfulness and the power of that. So what did that sort of journey look like for you? From going from this, I guess, this having all this pent up anger to now being, you seem so relaxed and calm. You've got a beautiful energy about you. So what did that journey look like? Because I think we live in a world where people don't want to meditate. They haven't got time. They're too busy, but it doesn't happen overnight, right? So what did that journey look like for you? How long did it take you to get to where you are now? And what do you sort of do daily, I guess, to ensure that you don't go backwards and you're always moving forward?
Good question. And I agree with you. I think there is a lot of angst going on right now. My journey was such that I've gone through different stages of my life where I think we all do, where we do our practice, we don't do our practice, and we can sense it. And my perfect, wonderful wife, I'm trying to get her to meditate all the time. Here I am, I teach meditation or I teach mindfulness to leaders, and she's just like, well, I don't think I can do it. And it's like, well, the Buddha had people 2,500 years ago saying, I don't think I can do it. That's always been an argument. I think what happens is after you start meditating a little bit, you start feeling the benefits of it. And then it gets to be a point, like you go to the gym and all of a sudden you miss going to the gym. You miss doing your meditations. And I meditate maybe 30, 40 minutes a day, but I really think the key is throughout your day also making sure you take those moments of transition where you're like being aware of, okay, I'm upset right now. I've got to talk to this person. Let me catch myself and really walk into that situation with the clearest mind I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important as well, those transitions, because I found that if I go from one task straight into a next, like it just all sort of seems to just go terribly wrong. And I think just taking like 6 deep breaths in between, for example, before I got on the podcast here with you today, I took a few deep breaths. I centered myself. I just sent a couple of emails, and right now I want to really show up and do this amazing interview, and I want to be my best. And if I had just gone straight from email Georgie to then podcast Georgie, like it just requires 2 different brainwaves almost. So I think that's really, really powerful. So talk to me about the first time that you sat down and decided to meditate, because, I think it's almost like you want to teach people that like you don't just start meditating all of a sudden you can sit there for 30, 40 minutes. Did you start with just a couple minutes, 5 minutes? Like what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I ended up, I think it was like 10 minutes. I went out after that incident. I went out and I got a couple of books. I was just so heartbroken in myself and seeing what I did. And I just went out and got a couple of books, and I kind of read a little bit on the books and I tried to understand it. Then, as I would always suggest, there's so many teachers right now. Your teacher can be on YouTube. Your teacher can be your coach. Your teacher can be a meditation instructor. I had this teacher, and he said, look, it's better to really do 5-10 minutes tops when you start off. Just take a little bit of time, because then you'll grow to not like it. It's like working out too much. If you just get all your clothes and you buy all your equipment and you go to the gym and you work out for 2 hours, you might never want to go again. So it's the same thing with meditation.
Yeah. And that's it as well. I think we live in quite an all or nothing world, like it's like you see people at the start of January join the gym, they go every day for an hour, they pound themselves on the treadmill and then they stop. So I think that's really powerful advice. Like just start by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but you're so right. You soon start to feel the difference. And now when I don't meditate, I go, if I miss a day, I'll go, I need to go and just take 10 minutes. And sometimes 10 minutes is all I need. So look, you obviously now you're teaching leaders, you're teaching people about mindfulness. So what do you also see like common patterns? So when people come to you, why do they come to you? Is there like a common theme that you get people saying, I want to fix this, I want to deal with this? What sort of some of the patterns that you find that humans have when they embark on this mindfulness journey?
There's 2 parts. I deal with a lot of people coming to solve problems in their business and their personal lives, and they want to be coached. They want to be coached. Oftentimes, it's a transactional situation. I've got this problem at work. whatever. My wife wants me to not bring work home with me. I'm rude to people. My company's making me get this, whatever. And what ends up happening is there it changes from a transactional to a transformational situation where the people, this is an outer problem. I've got to lower my labor percentage. I've got to decrease food costs, whatever the situation might be. But really, it's an inside thing. Like, what's going on? Well, I don't want to upset this person, or I don't want to be direct with this person. And oftentimes, it's through mindfulness that people discover their limiting beliefs. It's through being mindful that people actually can remember their goals through the day and who they want to be. So, it's a myriad of things, but oftentimes it kind of comes back to the inside and changing who they are on the inside.
I completely agree. And how do people go about doing that? I think that there's a lot of people who, they want to be better. They want to be more empathetic. They want to be kinder and, more present. But where do they start?
A lot of it happens. I don't even know how to explain it. I remember maybe when I first started out meditating, and I had a particularly good meditation, and I'm a little bit floating, and I go into work, and people have these issues, and I was, the proverbial zened out, like, okay, I can deal, no worries, I can take care of this, I can take care of that. It was just bouncing off me like I felt like a superhero, right? And I really think that this is something that naturally happens. So when you're mindful and you're doing mindfulness meditation, you slow down. And as you slow down, and maybe you start doing loving kindness meditation, or you start thinking about the other. And you no longer come at it like, this is me and this is what I want, and hello, I'm here, I'm in your face. And it's hi, Georgie. So what's going on here? And without any kind of judgment and without any kind of prejudice, let's figure this out together. And I think when that happens, you develop empathy naturally, you develop compassion naturally. So I think it's the fruit of the practice.
I completely agree. And I'd love to get your thoughts on, because for me personally, when I began to feel I was being kinder and more empathetic to others was when I began to be kinder to myself. And I did a lot of inner work on forgiving myself for, past things that I've done. And, I was in a sales role for many years. I became very selfish, very money focused. And there was a lot of things that I wasn't proud of who I was becoming about 5 years ago. And I thought, I don't want to become that person. I got clear on who I wanted to be. So what sort of, how important is that a part of the journey? Like, do you feel that you need to make time for yourself, understand yourself before you can then go and serve and help others? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Loving yourself. And this is something that's been recent on my journey. It's been only in the last few years that I heard that. I think being, a Western male, you can, love yourself. No, get to work, right? But I don't believe in that anymore. And I think a lot of that get to work is really a skin or a mask to hide, that person inside that's hurting. So, I think a lot of the woes that we have going on in our nation, particularly right now, is from this kind of hurt. You have people that are hating because they want to feel like they have something and somebody else feels this. What ends up happening is if you can love yourself, and you can look at yourself and go, well, I didn't really mean to do that, or that was a mistake, or that really wasn't that bad. I was doing the best I could at the time with what I knew. Once you know that, which oftentimes comes with understanding this power of now, as Eckhart Tolle says, right? If I'm truly right present at this moment, I'm not going to I'm not going to be thinking about the past. I'm not going to be worried about the future. I'll be more accepting with myself. So you can't love somebody else if you're judging them, and if you start off judging yourself, you're going to judge the other person. So love is, sometimes I think back on my rugby teams. If they heard me talking like that, I'd be shunned. But
Yeah.
love really is love for yourself, love for other, love for the strangers, love for the earth. I think all those things that really makes you actually a better business person. I truly believe that makes you a better business person. So.
I completely agree. And I think there's just not enough of these conversations going around because, instead of applying hate and frustration and blame and judgment, if we could apply more empathy and love as leaders, I think that the world would be in a lot more of a better place, So I think that's really, really powerful advice. But it's funny, isn't it? I do think that mindfulness has come a long way. I remember when I started to meditate, it was still very, very new. And people were like, meditation, mindfulness, what is all this woo-woo? But it started to now become more mainstream through like beautiful apps like Headspace, Calm. They've done such a fantastic job of like bringing this ancient practice to the Western culture. So you spoke something about there that's something really important about, teaching this and getting like some kind of pushback. Do you find you get much pushback now when you're teaching and speaking about this stuff, or have you found people are more accepting and are more interested now?
I think people are more interested for sure. And also, I think a lot of people that come to me, I mean, my company is called Mindful Leader, right? So the
Love
people,
it.
when they come, yes, when people come to me, oftentimes they already know what it's about. So I think there might be a little more reception overall. When I meet people, like cold calling or some sort of functions, sometimes people are curious about it, but I don't think I get too much pushback. I think with all the hard research being done right now, it's kind of this magic tool that people can use for so many things. So I think right now it's a good time to be involved in this, actually.
Yeah. I completely agree. And you wrote a beautiful article on LinkedIn all around like the 7 traits of a mindful leader. So I love to go into that now because I think if there's any time to become a mindful leader, it is now. But talk to me about some of the traits that, what if you could describe a mindful leader, what traits would this person have?
I think if you saw a mindful leader come into a situation, a stress situation, so, whatever it is, there's, the factory assembly line all of a sudden shut down, the restaurant, is backed up and their ticket times are half an hour or whatever. When somebody would walk in that we might identify as a mindful leader, they're going to walk into the situation, and one, they're not going to just react and the first person that says something go off, right? They're going to be curious. They're going to be humble. Oftentimes leaders need to have the answer, but we don't live in a day and age anymore where the leaders should be superheroes. The leaders should be leaders of a group. And oftentimes a couple of people will, there's going to be a time and place for a leader to take charge and do their thing. And that's okay. But maybe somebody who we'd consider a mindful leader, they're going to be curious. They're going to be humble. They're going to be non-reactive. They're going to be honest. They're going to be transparent. They're going to present themselves in a way that others can approach them. And if you have those qualities, it's, a lot of people have these qualities naturally. They are curious, they are inquisitive, they're caring, they're empathetic. Sometimes people aren't. Sometimes people might have those. They have them. They feel that, but in the moment, they're so eager to solve the problem. They're not solving the problem holistically. They're putting a Band-Aid over it. And that's really what integrity means, right? Integrity means one, it means whole. And I think a lot of the problems that we have right now, from medicine to, what's going on in this country right now, people are trying to fix this one problem without kind of identifying the whole system issue. And I think mindful leaders are a little bit more holistic in that sense.
I completely agree, and that let's touch upon that wholeness now, because I think that it really is like a mind-body connection, isn't it? And I think that I've always been a big believer in movement as well. I think that when I move my body, I feel good, and it releases obviously dopamine and serotonin. So in terms of I guess your own routines, you mentioned that you meditated for 30 to 40 minutes every day. Is there anything else that you do that you find helps keep you calm and healthy, especially during this time? Any sort of routines that you do on a regular basis?
I like yoga. I do yoga. I've also got into a habit of sitting a lot. My job isn't moving around, where at one time I was in charge of these resorts or restaurants and you walk around all the time. I find myself behind a desk, and I actually got one of those apps, those 10,000 step apps. So I'm always making sure people make fun of me when they see me, and I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get my steps in. Yeah. And I feel like that's really important. And I think one of the main things, the main reasons is you can change from the outside in, from the inside out, and there's a total connection. But how can you be mindful if you're in pain? Mm-hmm. So if my back is hurting, I'm about 6'6", so when my back hurts, it's hard to get in a position wherever I am. And I think having a healthy body allows you to have be a little bit more mindful. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about where am I going to stand or step, or do I have to bend over. I can think about you. I can think about what's in front of me in this present moment right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like we just sort of go through our day without really feeling our breath, without feeling our body. And it's funny you should say yoga. I took yoga up 18 months ago, and I always, when I was going through my first mindful journey, I used to find yoga really slow. I've always been the sort of person like to get my heart rate up and do really intense exercise. And yoga has been so amazing for me because it really does connect my mind and body like no other exercise or no other movement will. And just taking a few deep breaths, going into the postures, holding them there, it really has taught me a lot about discipline and slowing down and again, listening to my body, because I've always been a big sort of advocate for a bit of cardio, a bit of weight training, but I love yoga. I just think it's just such a beautiful practice and something that, I now do sort of 3 times a week, and I absolutely love it. So you do your meditation, your yoga, your 10,000 steps. In terms of, I guess, like nutrition and other sort of any sort of stress management, anything else that you do that you feel has contributed to your overall well-being and, sense of calm?
I did. I have to say, when I found out you invited me in, went through your website. I love your website. I love your whole idea you have going on. But for me, it was mindful eating. It was I became a vegetarian, and I was, unfortunately, a vegetarian for 15 years. No longer. I'm married to a beautiful wife from Croatia who doesn't understand that whole vegetarian thing, and but. We eat with a lot of love and a lot of health, and making sure our foods are organic and non-GMO, and a good balance. I think I was probably a sugar addict for a long time, and whatever. I might have a glass of wine here and there right now, but I don't sit and drink those beers like I once did. So. I think it's really important. And as soon as you change your diet, as soon as you start changing your diet, realize how much that diet had a play in things. When I eat sugar all the time, I'd see all the ups and downs, or, 4 cups of coffee through the day, or, actually, when I was drinking a lot, then I wake up in the morning, you couldn't meditate. And as soon as you stop drinking, you're like, oh, my meditation is so much better and enjoyable. So, all the way around, it's balance. We follow like a Mediterranean diet, actually. So we're just, very simple but very colorful food. So.
Yeah, it really is. Like when you sort of say it out loud, it's not rocket science, is it? It really is. Like if you actually think about, real health, move your body, eat whole healthy foods, eat a variety, eat the rainbow, find time to sit in stillness, become present. But it's easier said than done, like, because I guess like in this world we live in, we've constantly got distractions coming at us, and I when COVID hit, I made a very conscious effort not to watch the news. I was finding I was like, for the first time in a long time watching the news, because I was like, what's going on? I probably need to know about what's going on. And it really started to have an impact on my mental health. I could feel myself getting anxious. Oh my God, when am I going to see my family again? I'm in Australia, they're in the UK. And if I had let myself, I could have so quickly gone into this state of panic. And yeah, like I'd love to sort of hear your thoughts on like, how have you coped? How have you helped your clients cope during this time? Is there things that you've said, don't do this, start doing this? Like, yeah, how have you sort of been able to navigate through this really challenging time?
That's a really good question. For myself, I live out in the middle of the woods in Colorado in the mountains. So
beautiful.
Yeah, so that particular worry is not in the community people I live with. There's a couple of people that could have real serious adverse reactions. So we're all careful, and it never really affected us on a more of a visceral way. But we have had people that are around in my orbit. I do know somebody who got sick back in February, and she's still suffering right now. As far as the advice, the news, watching the news, exactly what you said. Like I watch the news still. It's still one of those things that I have to control, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to watch the news until I do this and this, and then a time limit, because I'll get on my feed and read all the news, and I got to know what's going on in politics. And it's unhealthy in a way. It's good to know a little bit of what's going on. Like you said, like it's good to know in general what's going on, but I really, I don't need to know what clothes Melania Trump's wearing. I don't, all that stuff. Yeah. And what ends up happening is when and I credit mindfulness of this, when I'm smart enough not to read the news and a few days go by, you do feel a sense of lightness. Mm-hmm. You feel a sense of openness. The news is not popular when it feels good. Right? Mm-hmm. It just is not. People read the news because they want to be shocked. They want to know how crazy the world is out there, and it gets just weirder and weirder. So I agree with you that staying away from that is a good idea. What's interesting is I've had a few clients that have been affected by it, but the way they kind of dealt with it in a very mature way, and they weren't dealing with a lot of other people. So we didn't have that same problem. One thing that I saw, and this is something as far as leadership goes, if you're leadership specific or if you have a group of people, I had a situation where this leader was trying to be real strong, and she was kind of telling everybody like what they were going to do and what was going to happen. And she came to me and she said, well, I just, I said this, but I don't think it's the right thing, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you don't need to have all the answers. This is unprecedented what's going on right now. So just, why don't you just talk to your staff? Just say, hey, I don't know what's going on right now, but, I need your help. What do you guys think? Ultimately the leader has to make the decision, but let them be heard. Let the staff be heard. Let the staff feel like they have input. Even if they don't agree with your decision, they're going to feel better knowing that they felt heard. So.
I think that's just such amazing advice, because I think that as leaders, and I've got a team as well, and when COVID hit, people look to you. What's going on? What's happening? How are we not going to navigate through this? And I had to put my hand up and say, I don't know. I have never been through anything like this before, like, and I'm sort of looking around and sort of like reading articles and, researching, and there was sort of nothing out there because no one has been through this before. And I just think that as I said, look, we're going to do our very best, like we're going to be honest and transparent, but we don't have all the answers. We don't know when this is going to end. And, we're going to navigate our way through this as best that we can. But I think that they appreciated that vulnerability and that honesty. If I'd come and said, it's fine, guys, we've got this is totally cool, we're going to, it wouldn't have felt right. And as soon as I don't feel like I'm living in alignment and I'm being authentic and honest, I get very like out of touch with myself. So it was a really, and it still is, let's be honest, like we don't know when this is going to end. Like we have no idea like what's around the corner. And here in Australia at the moment, people are on JobKeeper, and that's going to probably end of the year, and then a lot more people are going to probably lose their jobs, businesses are going to go under. It's going to be a really dire time, like there's no denying that. But I think that this is when I guess like the whole mindfulness comes in and it really plays its key part, because I think a lot of people attach their whole sense of worth and their whole identity into their jobs and what they do for a living and all that sort of stuff. And, I think when you sort of come from more of an inner place, you don't get as flustered and as stressed. And one thing COVID's taught me is that, everything that I own and stuff could be taken away, but one thing that will never be taken away is how I feel about myself. So how important is that piece as well, like in terms of like not attaching our self-worth into our jobs and our careers and the things? And how do you help people, like, I guess, pull back that separation a little bit?
That's very difficult. I think we all stress about that. I mean, it's our income, it's our homes, it's our families. But at the same time, that's where mindfulness actually helps in this is at any given point, you just are where you are, like just that minute. And oftentimes, no matter how bad a situation is, that second, you're okay. You're okay. And I think if people live in that state of mindfulness as much as possible, and again, it's much easier said than done. But the other thing is, it's about mindset and figuring out like, how am I going to relate to the world? Mm-hmm. And if I relate to the world in a position of, oh, well, I lost my job. Looks like I haven't paid my house for 3 months. I don't know what's going to, there it could be dire and you could feel very negative. And if you watch the news on top of that, more bad news, it's hard to keep a positive mindset. Concentrate on the things you can do. And the things you can do is you can be present with your family. You can be present with the clerk. You can say kind things to people. You can hold the door open for someone. Instead of concentrating on the things you can't do that leave you powerless, concentrate on the things you can do that gives you your personal power back. And as you change that, I mean, for those of us who believe in the law of attraction, all of a sudden you see yourself being capable rather than incapable. So
that is incredible advice. I think that's absolutely so beautifully put, and I think that's going to be the opening of the podcast. I think that's amazing. You mentioned at the start as well, you said a couple of books, and you've mentioned Eckhart Tolle, big fan of Power of Now. That's probably the first book I read that really got me into that. In fact, that book probably saved me from years of anxiety, just constantly pulling myself back to the present moment. Everything here is fine, because I think a lot of where my anxiety used to come from was future. And it's like, what if this, what if that, what if that? So for people who want to maybe understand more about mindfulness, any good books, any good websites or anything like that people can turn to?
There are so many. There's so many, from something as simple as almost any website. I like, there's an author, if you like nature, Mark Coleman. He writes a lot of beautiful books. Sharon Salzberg, of course, John Kabat-Zinn is one of the first big researchers that taught this. And of course, there's always on the spiritual side, like Thich Nhat Hanh. The Dalai Lama has a book on mindfulness. So it's ubiquitous, the availability of, mindfulness information out there, and most of them are really good. And maybe something I would like to say here is, there's a lot out there. So if you pick something up and you don't like it, don't give up. I don't like it. Put it down. Go to the next book. Don't like it, put it down. Go to the next book. Go to the next website. There's going to be a teacher. There's going to be a book. There's going to be a phrase that resonates with you, because all mindfulness is the opposite of mindlessness. Consciousness, becoming conscious, is just the opposite of staying unconscious. So it's really like, it's a natural evolution of us all. You will find the book, you will find the teacher, you will find the website, whatever it is, if you look, because it is part of our true nature, I believe.
And just, I guess that leads me on to a beautiful final question, is like, how would you define mindfulness? Like if someone said to you, Clifton, summarize, what is true mindfulness?
It's being able to walk into a situation. I think the classic definition is something like being able to walk into a situation with complete awareness without judgment. And that's being aware of your intention as you're walking in. It's being aware of your emotional state. And it's being completely curious to what's going on, rather than walking into a situation with a prejudice, essentially.
Wow, beautiful. And if people want to reach out to you, find out more about you and be coached by you, where should they go?
You can check me out on LinkedIn. You can check me out at mindfulleader.com. No vowels. I don't like vowels. So it's just mdnflldr.com. And then Facebook, Instagram. So I think I might be one of the, just type in Clifton Carmody. I might be one of the only Clifton Carmodys out there. So
okay, done. Well, we'll put all of the links in this podcast. It's been an absolute honor to have you on, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And I do want to say that if there is anybody who's been affected by COVID in their life, any of your listeners, if they'd like to reach out to me and share that they saw this newscast, we do work with people on a sliding scale as being an inspiring benefit corp. So if anybody is thinking about they need this, they need like a push to go get a job, they need whatever it is, we'll work with people on a sliding scale too.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah, anyone who's listening, absolutely reach out, because I think now more than ever, if we could all become a bit more aware and conscious and mindful, then we would definitely be able to navigate our way through this uncertain time that we're living through right now. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. And thank you everyone for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.